Level 5. The Hound of the Baskervilles. Copyright 2009. Compass Publishing. All rights reserved. Chapter 1. Mr. Sherlock Holmes. Mr. Sherlock Holmes was seated at the breakfast table, as I stood behind him on the rug, and picked up the walking stick, which our visitor had left behind the night before. It was a very fine piece of wood, with an inscription on a silver band, near the top, which read, "To James Mortimer, M.R.C.S., from his friends of the C.C.H., 1884.
Well, Watson, what do you make of it?
How did you know what I was doing? I sometimes think you have eyes in the back of your head. I don't, but I do have a very well-polished silver coffee pot in front of me. What do you think about our visitor's stick? It's a shame we weren't home last night, because now we don't know the purpose of his visit. Can you tell anything by looking at his stick? I think, I said, trying to follow my friend's methods, that Dr. Mortimer is a successful elderly doctor who lives in the country and does most of his visiting on foot. I say that because the stick is very well used, so he has done a lot of walking with it. The C.C.H. is probably some kind of hunt club where he lives, and whose members he has helped. Excellent,
Watson. Well done. I was very pleased that he had complimented me, and I gave him the stick. He looked at it carefully for a moment, and then got his magnifying glass and looked at it again. It's very interesting, and we should be able to make several deductions. I'm afraid, however, that most of your conclusions were wrong after all. Seeing my disappointment, he added, "You were right to deduce that the man is a country doctor who walks a great deal." "Is that all?" "Well, you see, dear Watson, a presentation to a doctor is more likely to come from a hospital than a hunt, and if you put the letters C.C. in front of hospital, you automatically think of Charing Cross. All right. So, he worked in the city before he went to the country. I think we can do better than that," said Holmes. "We can be quite certain the stick was given to him when he left the hospital. But he was probably not a member of the staff, since members of staff at Charing Cross Hospital would be very unlikely to leave and go to the country. He must have been a student or a house surgeon. And as the stick was given to him only 5 years ago, he must still be under 30 years old and not be the elderly doctor you suggest." I opened my mouth to speak, but Holmes went on. "He is friendly, unambitious, absent-minded, and the owner of a dog." "We can check some of that," I said. Going to the bookcase, I got down the medical directory and looked up Dr. Mortimer. There were several, but only one that could be our visitor, and I read it out to Holmes. It says, "Mortimer James, M.R.C.S., 1882, Grimpen, Dartmoor, Devon. House surgeon, 1882 to 84, at Charing Cross Hospital. He must be a clever man because he has won several prizes, and he published a few journal articles, and he is now the medical officer for Grimpen, Thornsley, and Highborough." "There is no mention of the Hunt Club, Watson," said Holmes, with a wicked smile. "But you were right to deduce that he was a country doctor." "There's no mention of him being friendly, unambitious, and absent-minded either," I remarked. "But we do not need the book to tell us that," replied Holmes, "because we have his stick. Only friendly men receive gifts such as that when they leave a place. Only unambitious men would leave the city to go to the country for a career, and only an absent-minded man would leave his walking stick behind without leaving a visiting card." "And the dog?" "The dog sometimes carries the stick for its master, and you can see its teeth marks in the middle of it. The space between the marks is too wide for a terrier and not wide enough for a mastiff. I'm sure it is a curly-haired spaniel." He had been walking around the room as he spoke and now stopped by the window. "How can you be so sure about the type of dog?" "I can see it through the window, for its owner has just arrived on our doorstep." The doorbell rang, and it was not long before Dr. James Mortimer was shown into the room. He was a very tall, thin man, with a long nose that shot out from between his two gray eyes, which sparkled behind his gold-framed glasses. As soon as he saw his walking stick, he picked it up. "I would not like to lose that stick," he said, "as it was a gift on the occasion of my wedding." "That's terrible," said Holmes. Dr. Mortimer looked at him in surprise and asked why it was terrible. "You've made a mess of our little deductions," smiled Holmes. "Nothing more." "I married, which meant that I had to leave the hospital, so I found a home of my own in the country." "Well, perhaps we were not so far wrong after all," said Holmes. "I see by your fingers that you make your own cigarettes. Please be seated and make yourself comfortable." The young doctor did so, taking out some tobacco and paper, and making a cigarette with his unusually long and narrow fingers, and Holmes sat patiently waiting and observing our strange visitor. "Mr. Holmes," he said suddenly, "I have come to see you because I have a very serious and unusual problem. I am not a practical person, so I thought it best to consult you, for you are the second highest crime expert in Europe." "And who is the first?" exclaimed Holmes, almost angrily. "For a precisely scientific mind, Monsieur Bertillon is unsurpassed." "Then perhaps you should go and see him." "But I need a person who combines science with a practical mind, and in that regard, everybody knows that you stand alone." "I think, Dr. Mortimer," said Holmes, still not entirely satisfied, "that you had better tell us about the problem you would like us to examine."